Testing, testing. Attention, please. Yo, what's going on? Hey guys, so welcome back to another week of the community challenge. So for game number 1, we've got Eerie versus Striker. And for game number 1 of that, we've got Dueling Islands, also known as Dwelling Islands, if you're Casper. Otherwise, guys, I think I'm just going to take this one away. I'll just see if these guys are ready. You guys ready? Go, go, and yes are the responses. So we've got Persia and Norse here, so Striker's favourite, and I think one of Eerie's favourites as well. Here he'll be on Persian, and we're just about to start. Didn't pick me nose there, guys. Watch the replay closely. So, for game number 1 today, we've got an old fan favourite, Dueling Islands. And spawning in the bottom side of the map, we've got Striker as the blue Norse player. And spawning in the top side of the map as the red Norse player, we've got Eerie. So today, guys, we've got a pretty high level matchup here between these two. In fact, pretty much top level. These guys both have semi-finals experience themselves in finals, and I think Strike was actually pretty keen to get this map. Sorry for the dodgy camera movements. I'll try and use this to be a little bit more gentle, but a bit more slow. But anyway, we've seen both players already sort of have a good scout of their water lines. Striker's sort of figured out where he wants to put his docks over here, so he'll be right on top of the fish spawns, if he can hopefully hold on to fishing boats. It's really hard to in this map, actually, because realistically both players are trying extremely hard to get on the water for 2 reasons. 1, obviously because you can deny your enemy, but 2, so you don't get denied yourself. And there is also these little islands here, and we can't see it just yet, but there is usually one of each resources on them. I think my cat's wailing at me. I have to make sure he's actually ready to go outside before I What? Don't look at me like that. It's just staring at a cupboard. Okay, false alarm. Anyway, now back to the game. Neither player has taken a dock just yet, but Eerie is just about to throw his down. So his camera moved up there to the top side just before he went over there. Bit of a weird resource distribution. Eerie has actually got 3 stone mines and 3 gold mines here, as well as another stone mine. Strike, on the other hand, has 4 gold mines. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of gold and stone these guys actually have on their initial bases here. So even if you do sort of get forced to siege up, there is a lot to gather back at home. The problem resource is actually wood, realistically, because you can get enough of it to get a couple of farms out, to get a market down, and get some caravans going. And generally you want to try and actually safe spot it, and try and, I don't know, maybe put it somewhere like here and here. Try and keep it as far out of the range of anything as possible. So when it comes to crunch time, it's really hard to keep macroing in the late game, unless you've actually taken these weird little islands. Alright, the cat, I think, really needs some attention. It was a bad idea letting him in. So Eerie's already hit Bronze Age, but so is Striker, only about a quarter of a second behind. And the galley is already coming out for Eerie. Striker, in the meanwhile, it's already looking to take some Age 2 tech. Hasn't actually thrown down a dock this yet, but he has already got his second town centre, so if he can get the dock out in a reasonable amount of time and get his warship on the way before Eerie puts a bit too much pressure on him, he can pull really far ahead based off this. But in the same token, it's also going to be extremely hard for him to do anything to Eerie in doing so. And Eerie is going to have all the control of the map until he actually gets his warships out. And the galley, it's a fairly cheap warship overall, but it's not really one of the stronger ones. Meanwhile, I think the Norse one is a little bit stronger. I'm not really an expert on the ships. I sort of know that the galley is one of the weaker ones, but cheaper. And the Swan ships for the Celts have got is actually one of the really strong warships. It's about like 250 or 275 resources though. So Striker already has his second town centre down, so he'll be able to maintain double villager production. Eerie in the meanwhile still in there has single, but he's going to be looking to eventually step it up to a second town centre, and has already managed to pick off a land unit, one of the scouts. Got 2 warships on the surround. Striker is forcing out a dock on the rear side, and Eerie doesn't quite have enough to completely surround Striker just yet. So as long as Striker finishes this in time, he's not going to be completely landlocked. But in saying that, it's going to be an uphill battle for him, and Eerie, yeah, has definitely already gone for the more control-oriented build for the map. With the double warships taking out another scout, Striker actually pulling his villager away. So the galleys, they deal 50 damage. They've got a fairly wide range. Villager falling. Now for Striker, Eerie forcing out longships from Striker, but he's also got more galleys of his own here. So the longship is a little bit tankier. Is one of the 250 resource ships, so it's actually a 3 population. Oh, galleys are also 3 population, sorry. But it's an extra 150 health, and the longships have the same DPS. So effectively you can tank 3 more shots, but realistically you don't want to be tanking all the damage, and Striker is largely doing this to buy himself a bit of time, because he is going for a second dock behind this. Eerie still on the 1 dock at this stage. And Striker losing a warship now. So he has got his second dock up now, so he does have the production advantage over Eerie, who is now just adding his second dock. So Striker, his greed may have paid off here in a sense, but Eerie is taking his 3rd age behind this. So Eerie is going to be able to get out the fast counter warship, and that's going to be really devastating, because if he can manage to get inside melee range, is it melee from the Persians? They have a ram ship, I'm pretty sure, whereas the Norse, they got the fire ship. Anyway, sorry, my cat's starting to really distract me now. We've got some really nice micro from both players here, up to 4 ships each. Eerie on the run, Striker in pursuit, a little bit more health on his ships overall. Sniping down the first of these from Eerie. Eerie's doing a reasonably well job at dodging all these, despite having all the ships all bunched up and all in pursuit and all fleeing. I think they're the same speed, they're both 10 speed ships. But Eerie, in the meantime, has sort of managed to bait Striker out this far enough that the ram ships are going to prove to be quite devastating, because any moment now Eerie can really split this around, and Striker is going to be on the run instead, because the ram ships, they are a little bit slower though. They're 2 speeds slower, but as you can see they really pack a punch. They end up hitting for at 90 damage per the ships, I believe. Yeah, so Striker throwing down a 3rd dock. Eerie hasn't looked to throw down his 3rd dock or a second town centre at all just yet. And Striker is going to have to try and get out an age 3 eventually. But in saying that, these ram ships being the stronger ship, they are also the slower ship, so it's going to be a bit of work for Eerie to actually run down the longship. He's going to have to try and get a good surround. Going to have to try and maybe get something going on Striker's land and poke him a bit there, just to distract him to get a good engage of the water. So we'll have to see what both players have in store for us now, because they've both made it this far. Neither player has managed to landlock the other, so to speak. got a bit of a population lead here for Striker. Erie starting to fall behind in score now, so his more aggressive and tech-oriented build certainly falling behind on the economic front. Striker even getting his +1 range damage upgrade for his ships, so we'll see that kick in shortly. But for now, Erie is going to try and make a big siege here. So the ram ships are also going to get a little bit of bonus damage against the docks. So Striker's going to have to work a lot harder at defending any docks here, as well as kiting away from them. So this is where things are going to get dicey for him. He's eventually going to have to almost sack his ships, but he's got a greater number here. So Erie is losing all of his forward ships now, and Striker has a big longship count. 11 longships. Erie really falling behind on the numbers now. Striker's greed-oriented build here with the later dock, the early second town center, really sort of faring well right now because Erie is locked up for resources. Striker has a lot more in the bank, a lot more actual population right now. But Erie, if you can get good connects right now, like he got one there, at least he's getting a little bit of value, but he certainly is going to probably want to get a bit more than that. And right now, these slower ram ships are being singled out as well. So there's a couple of galleys going for a flank. Perhaps doing this in opposite way would be ideal, but a lot of the time you've just got to make do with what you got, because Striker is just playing really aggressively on Erie's doorstep right now on the water. And the warship count is really favouring Striker still. There's 3 ram ships from Erie, but Striker is continuing to kite Erie back. Erie even splitting his ram ships up, trying to micro them as best as he can. Doing a good job trying to focus down those ships, but it's just not getting there. These 2 idle galleys, perhaps if they were to come back and say interchange with a ram ship, perhaps Erie could look at poking one of Striker's docks from the rear side. He's going to have to do it soon, because Erie is definitely running low on resources now. He's got the second town center going up, but Striker is really getting upgrades on the way, getting some more eco tech. He's actually fishing. I don't think Erie's fishing yet. Erie's still only on, well, Erie's back down to 1 dock basically. Striker up to 1, 2, 3, 4 over that side. A 5th over here being constructed, but over on this rear side of Striker's base, relatively undefended. I suppose underdefended is possibly accurate at this stage, considering Striker's got so much stone and wood in the bag. Erie able to get a couple of nice kills here, and Striker in the meanwhile returning the favour though, forcing a big garrison scanning. The second TC from Erie, so he's seen that that's come up. He's gone, alright, well, it's safe for me to take a 3rd age. You focused on eco for a bit, so it's my time to focus on tech for a bit. Meanwhile, over on this side, just scanning out what pops out. Striker has hit the Silver Age. Erie has allowed himself to try and catch up a bit more in population, but he just doesn't have the resources to get there. Striker still with the solid population lead now. Erie's other couple of docks being scouted out, but there is a bunch of ram ships here. So these 9 longships, if they can get surrounded, or Striker has to micro else around the map, it can be a lot of damage for him really quickly. 2 of the longships already falling. 3 of them falling for nothing, so Erie getting a really nice trade down up there. Meanwhile, down over on this side, Striker has to split his forces up, try and take out these couple of galleys, which are poking away at his docks. Again, being the galleys, though, it's going to take quite a while for them to necessarily get the kills. But in saying that, at least they potentially have the option of fleeing. With the ram ships, they're so slow. If you can't snipe the docks, it's really hard to just try and throw away the ram ships, unless you can also then turn and snipe all of his ships on the water. Oops, sorry little fella. The cat's distracting me. So, Striker now, continuing to kite Erie, and thinning out the numbers. Erie, now at that second town centre, may be able to catch up a little bit in terms of his economy behind this. In terms of the worker counts, he got 48 to 71, so Striker is managing to really pump out workers behind this, even getting really heavily transitioned on the water over on that southwest side of the map. Meanwhile, Erie taking more docks. He wants to keep adding them in because Striker has grabbed all those crucial ones over on this front side to really cut down the rush distance and sort of act as a bit of a buffer for the rest of your base. But he's still got some more over on the rear side. Striker attempting to take a town centre on a fairly greedy island expansion, but this is quite smart too, because if Eerie pushes him off late and Eerie takes the island, now all of a sudden Striker can retreat back here and get resources. Meanwhile, Eerie is sort of forced to have to try and expand over here for the meantime. So we've got a big water fight being taken now, actually. 12 long ships, but there's 6 ram ships here and a couple of galleys in tow as well to deal a bit of damage on the retreating ones. So nice connect there, actually, but Eerie again just doesn't seem to have the numbers. Striker has a really good number of these long ships, able to really take the offensive. Only have to back off at the last moment, trading a couple of hits for an entire kill at a time, so this is really working in his favour for the most part. Eerie, on the other hand, he's doing everything he can to stay alive, microing everything really well, splitting ships up and sacrificing one at a time rather than losing them all at once, but he's just not able to build a nice count. He's just that far down in eco that it's really getting difficult for him to do much here, and he's even expanded onto the island widely, and unfortunately for him, he's going to have to try and take this other side, but Striker is doing everything he can to deny him over this side of the map, so it's a GG. So it's a really nice opening there from both players, but Striker's proved to be a little bit more effective in the long run there, and he did get that crucial mid-game water advantage, able to translate it into furthering his already ahead eco. And from there, he forced the GG. So I'm going to kick the cat out, guys. Sorry. But before I do that, I'm just going to change the ticker. We've got Striker with a +1. But Dueling Islands swapping it for Oasis. Now, if you're not pumped for this, you won't be excited for anything in life. Alright, Sasha, sure, I'm gonna kick you out now. What? Alright, it's time to bring on the real celebrity of ALEO. Once I just give you guys a quick wrap up with the score, so you can see. Shush, you funny animal. The crucial differences. So Eerie going for the earlier dock, Striker earlier town centre. Eerie's earlier galleys, unfortunately not enough to eventually, for Striker to eventually just overwhelm him. Everything he had with that earlier second town centre, and he even took that aggressive third, so really smart. Alright guys, now I'll be 1 second. I'll bring the cat on actually. Sorry about that, he ran away before I could bring him on. He's the star of the show. Anyway, Striker's going Celt, Eerie's staying Persia. So we just got a little interim while we're waiting on Striker to swap to Celts. Erie's up to stay Persia. Hopefully everything's all running smoothly. Alright, so we're underway for game number 2 between Striker and Erie. Well, just be a moment, folks. We're just gonna have to make Striker the host again, I think. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to actually use the chat harder. Do. Can I get a do in the chat? Alright. Alright, so we got Erie and Striker playing off in game number 2 on Oasis. So this is a little lake here in Oasis, and unlike on Coastal you can run straight across it. I actually miss this map immensely, to be honest. I hate Coastal, but I love this map, just as a personal thing. And we got Striker opening up with an early barracks on, well, it's called Protoss, but it's Celt, guys. And meanwhile Erie playing his PF2K. Or at least, he thinks he's playing his PF2K. He's playing Persia today. And he's picked this for game number 2. Striker swapping civs. This sort of playing a bit semi sort of tournament rules in a sense, where you swap as you win on a civ. Sort of nice for them. Whoa, Erie's got a misrallied worker there, but that's only going to cost him about a second of build time there. So it's not a huge deal for him. Looks like Striker is going to have that barracks up quite a fair bit quicker than Erie, but he has gone with a double villager on it, so it is going to finish up fairly soon as well. It does obviously cost him a little bit of gathering time, so to speak, and Striker even distance gathering wood still at this point, so he's not doing it off up here, he's just doing it off his TC, so he hasn't opted to actually move, but I suppose he wants to take the wood line down here, so that sort of makes sense. Why double up on all that travel time when you can just stay gathering at your TC and then just shift to the quickest wood line and safest wood line at the back of your base. So Erie, in the meanwhile, is going to be able to defend his sheep here. He's got the spar bar in place, but Striker is also watching to see if any start popping out this way. And in the meanwhile, is trying to mass up as much spears as he can in the short term now. We see his second hunt being taken by Striker. Erie is opting for stone at this stage. So Striker playing a little bit greedier around the food, Erie playing a bit greedier around getting that second town centre and age 2 out. So a lot of the time on the bigger maps, the Persians will even opt to skip the barracks and go for a range first. On a map like this, it's a little bit hard to do though, particularly because there's a lot of a little bit of an earlier skirmish over the water. Because if you can secure that, it's usually the life or death situation of the map. Right now, there is a couple of Sparabara heading out from Erie, so he is probably going to go for the hunt on this side with those. Striker, in the meanwhile, moving out with a large number of spearmen, so he wants to try and put pressure on wherever Erie tries to take his next hunt. He's scouting out over this side going, alright, there's a couple of villages here, but there doesn't really seem to be a hunt over that side. So he must be trying to get it from up there, possibly, but Striker really unsuccessful in his attempts to find something to fight there with his 8 spearmen. Erie, on the other hand, pushing Striker back here, off the hunt, onto the herd, so that's not too good for Striker considering he hasn't quite got that number of herdables that Erie does. But he's going to find this last group of villages on the deer, and he's going to possibly be able to shut down these Sparabara before they can do too much damage at all here. So those villagers forced to flee. Erie in the meanwhile, forcing some of Striker's villagers to rally off the resource, but he's lost a Sparabara for his troubles. There's a good amount here. This is quite smart. Trying to take this hunt here. Although, is he trying to force out the TC? He probably is trying to force out the TC. If he gets aid tent, that's a really nice spot to have aid tented, considering he can heal units near the lake, and he can get stone, get deer, so that's really nice there for Erie. But in the meanwhile, Striker taking a really advantageous spot for a forward TC, and Erie unaware that this has actually gone down. So Striker doing a wonderful job at chasing Erie off that spot before he could see that. So Erie not yet aware where Striker has this town center yet. He possibly thinking he's going for a more defensive one, but it's a nice spot. That's also a nice spot for a tent, an aid tent. And as you can see now, it's already healing up a Sparabara, so it's effectively undoing the damage of a spearman already. And it won't quite... oh, that Sparabara does eventually make it out there. The villagers won't quite make it out, so Erie being punished for the storehouse because he just doesn't have the numbers yet to defend it, getting a range and a TC instead. But now there's a range coming up for Striker and a really forward position here for him, so he's really secured these forward resources, while Erie is going to have to try and fight for these forward resources over his side of the map. He's not really got any static defense up there to help guard an army or any of the villagers. And Striker adding in his longswordsman. His range is finished up. Erie's range is also finished up. Actually, sorry, Striker's range hasn't finished up just yet, but Erie's range is finished up, and he has got his first bowman away, so he should finish one more before Striker's pops. With Striker being Celt, he's going to have no access to bowmen this early on, but he is going to have access to slingers, so Erie losing a storehouse for his troubles. Striker is going to be able to make it out of here, I think. Yeah, so Striker does make it out. So Erie is forced to have to distance gather for a little bit and try and throw up another storehouse. Another range going up as well in the meantime. But Striker taking the water, so if he can hold this, he's going to be in a very nice greedy spot over Erie. But Erie is going to have a nice production facility advantage over his opponent now, and he's going to be quite hard to really push into, considering he's got those stacked town centers, so it's going to be quite difficult for Striker to really just come marching through his base. The double TC fire adds up, you know. It's another 24 damage, basically doubled, and when the players age up again, it's going to be even stronger. So we've got a whole bunch of bowmen being added to this count of Asabara, but there's still a bunch of infantry of Strikers still on the flank. He's going to try and deal some more damage, destroy this forward storehouse, deny a bit of vision, and move out with this quicker army. So this is a 7-speed army versus a 6-speed army. So as long as Striker doesn't pave into something here, he's not going to get caught. But Eerie can wedge him in like this. And this could be a bit of a big loss for him if he sticks around too long here. So Eerie managing to pick off a couple of infantry for free. Striker having to back off. Play it safe, play it cool. Eerie has got a really nice force massed up now. Fairly mixed composition, while Striker has added in a good number of slingers himself. So if he can combine his forces here, he just needs to look at translating his advantage over the lake here. But first off, he does have a swan ship out, and they are the tankiest of the ships, I believe. They're a 300 resource ship, but they are 3 population like all the other ships, and except for maybe a Byream's 2 pop. I think Byream's might be 2 pop, but otherwise all the others are 3. I think that might be the case. Anyway, swan ships have a ridiculous amount of stats. They cost a lot, but in saying that, they can go toe-to-toe with any other ship and win, just because of the fact that, yeah, they've got so much extra stats. Obviously you're paying for them, but it's really, really population efficient. But in saying that, it does end up getting singled out. Striker forced to have to back off here. Doesn't quite have much of a front line left to really deal with this at the moment. So he needs to get this number of slingers. He's got a good count of these slingers, but he needs to try and bide his time. Eerie is a really good count on the bowman. Eerie is going to be able to retake the dock off Striker here, forcing him back off these berries as well preemptively before he loses any more villagers. Going to try and gather a bit more gold instead. So Eerie getting some really nice connects on Striker's military then, getting a couple of easy kills. Single slinger is just going for it. He's going to deal 7 whole damage. Actually, it's about 3.5 damage to a Sparabara. Not much at all. So Eerie now has a slight population lead over Striker, a little bit of a score deficit. So Striker just getting a little bit more out in the field than Eerie at the moment. He's probably waiting on some houses to go up. There we go. More production for Eerie now. He has got a galley of his own on the way now, so Striker is going to have to try and return the favour here and retake the water off Eerie, or it could be game for him, because Eerie has a really, really scary force now, and on a map like this as well, once you've got that mid-map advantage, it's really, really hard to come back, particularly if you've just got a bigger army and move in. Really hard for your opponent to deal with because they can't outgather you from that position. They're not going to win the war of attrition, so it'll be really, really crucial to try and win this lake here, or in really any map, any sort of mid-map advantage where there's lots of resources or an uneven resource distribution. If you can win that, you can often just stranglehold your opponent no matter how long the game goes on. Right now, Eerie's going to try and snipe a production facility, but Striker is going to try and wedge his way up here and deal some damage as well. He doesn't want to overextend, but in the same token, he probably doesn't want to lose these production facilities. Eerie is doing everything he can to work away at this without losing too many units. Striker is going to lose the range, it looks like, so Eerie does manage to nab the range off him. He's really fighting back right now, getting his age 3. Striker has a lot of stuff in production at the moment. Eerie not so much, but he's getting his age 3 no doubt, and these towers may help do a bit of damage here. Eerie is going to have to be careful right now. Striker thought he was going to add another one, but it turns out it's just a storehouse. But it may be enough to force Eerie to retreat. For the time being, he's sort of satisfied with just pinching the range at this stage. And Striker, he's already got his age 3, I didn't even realise. Wow, so phenomenal play from Striker. Already ahead on the age 3, even though he's lost this water of Eerie. He seems to be able to hold on here. Eerie has now got his age 3. And seems to be 20 pop-ups, so it could be quite drastic for Striker right now. He's going to have to do everything he can, microing these individual towers onto the same units, just to try and get extra damage out as he can. And there's Town Center just about being finished off for him. Eerie is looking at throwing down hits over here to secure this gold mine as well. So both players looking at securing distant gold mines. Not too uncommon on this map, where it is quite a struggle to fight for resources. Yeah, on these older maps they really are brutal. There's all these really open, really exposed gold mines, really quite far away from your main base. It's sort of end to end, a lot of the old map pool. You know, either end of the spectrum really. And Striker losing the storehouse. Really sniping that one now. Backing up before he loses too much now. Striker has caught up in population and is adding cavalry to his composition. Here he has just started to do the same as well. He has got the Asabara, a horseman now as well. It's really nice looking Sparabaras that Erie's got. I'll give him that. So he is going to try and take the range now. Striker's bowmen look really cool too. Snake bows. So both players exchanging some blows, getting some more economic tech each. Striker actually getting his some military tech, getting his first tier damage upgrades for both his melee and his range units. Eerie getting his armor upgrade. So Eerie doesn't really have a lot in terms of economic upgrades. Striker has got a couple of... Actually, sorry, I take that back. Eerie's got a little bit more in terms of his wood upgrade. Striker doesn't really have a lot of upgrades at all. Eerie doesn't really have much other than his wood upgrade. So both players trying to work in early army upgrades, but not a lot in terms of eco upgrades here. Really nice defense right now though. Striker probably trying to actually whittle down the front line as best he can so he can get the range to the back line. And Eerie is a really big count on the bowman. 55 bowmen, 30 Sparabara. Already at 180 population. Striker down by 5. So he must have a house somewhere. Oh, there's a couple of Asabara here getting some really good kills. Really crucial gathering time of Strikers being denied right now. So Eerie catching up with this harass. And he's priming himself to be able to engage on the front line, I think. The Striker has these units rallied back here. And the horsemen aren't actually attacking the Asabara, so that's really critical. Eerie, again, moving back and forth. Both players trying to exchange blows, but might have been enough for Eerie to pull a bit ahead in terms of the... Oh no, I take the back. Striker is well ahead in the work count. So Striker up to 90 workers, Eerie up to 70 at the moment. So Eerie is harassing with everything he's got, but Striker's economic play behind this has just been absolutely perfect. There's a ram being added in here. So if Eerie can get close with his siege, he may just have enough to be able to bust through Striker's defenses right now. And he does have that bigger army, but Striker is doing a good job at really thinning out the front line. He just needs to hit something onto the ram. Eerie does have a bit of population locked up with these galleys, which can't really take any opportunity in the fight once you get back to about past there. So the range is going to fall. Another range is going to fall. But there is horsemen straight behind it, so they should be able to pick off this ram of Eerie's. And Striker is repositioning his army again. He may just decide to sacrifice the town centre or just wait for one last opportunity before he goes in. He does have his cavalry sort of on the wrong side here. The storehouse is a bit funny. These storehouses are sort of a bit of a funny spot for him now. golden age kicking in now for Striker, so the town center getting a bit more damage, a bit more health as well. And the ram does fall. Eerie is a little bit ahead of Striker in terms of population now. He's up by about 15. Striker really low on food, but Eerie is also really low on food and an age down now, so Striker is going to lose the town center, is going to lose the towers, maybe the barracks now. Striker, he's in the position to get some carpenters out. He's in the position to throw up another 2 town centers in exchange for this one falling, so perhaps he can really turn the tide of the battle here. He's definitely still got the eco in his court. Eerie is still down by about 15 workers at this stage, but Eerie's fighting forces is just phenomenal, and now he's going to try and slowly exchange things back into a bit more of an economic play. He's going to try and get an age for himself, get some answers for these carpenters before they start to get too scary right now, and they are hitting. They hit quite hard. But Striker doesn't really have enough of a front line really to continue to engage. Eerie has a huge number of bowmen, 53 bowmen. So Striker is going to have to play it very cautious, very safe. And Eerie is going to have to sort of do the same as well because he's really extended right now. He's sort of behind enemy lines with this force, but if he keeps pushing right now, he can really take out a couple more of Striker's production and really slow him down because Striker doesn't have the wood to throw up a lot behind this. Another storehouse going down, and the range under threat. Units falling everywhere for both players. And try and snipe whatever he can. There's a couple of Asabar actually rallying back. Oh, Striker's got these villagers down here. He seems to have forgotten about, but Eerie might be able to find them now. Eerie doesn't seem to notice. Oh, the suspense. The suspense. But Eerie does actually find the ones on the gold mine itself. What's Striker intending to do with all these villagers? Oh, he's going to throw down another town center over here. Okay. But in the meanwhile, on the other side of Striker's base, Eerie is trying to go in for the kill now, sniping a group of idle villagers just standing around collecting a paycheck. And there's another bunch of villagers on this gold mine of Strikers that are going to force to have to back off, but there's a good number of the carpenters, and now they've got champions, so they've got area damage, they've got a little bit more damage. They should really be able to start tearing through Eerie's fairly small unit composition here if they can stay alive. There's not really a front line for them, but they can really pick off anything in front of them that stacks up. And so Eerie is trying to get onto these carpenters, but there's no front line for either player right now, and that's really scary for Eerie, because if the carpenters hit a stacked up archer-ball, the archer-ball is really going to come off worse for wear in that position. But Eerie is sending individual units forward to try and pick individual shots out. That is bringing more cavalry into the mix, but Striker is bringing something himself to try and act as a bit of a front line here. So this is really nice end-game play from both players. Carpenter trades getting, oh, a nice triple kill there. So Striker's late game army here is doing a wonderful job, but Eerie's really managed to transition to getting some more Asabar out. He wants to be able to start dealing some good damage to these carpenters. We're still on 25 bows, so Eerie is still managing to add units in here. And the carpenters, there's 20 of them still. So Eerie is going to have to do everything he can to keep that count from rising, because Striker is really hurting him right now. Still got that age advantage, but Striker is losing houses right now. Eerie is taking his houses out behind this, so Striker is going to have to throw up some houses. He's going to have to try and deal with that ramp in the meantime. So this is some really nice play from both players. Eerie backing the ram out as well. He wants to go for a second shot. He doesn't want Striker to know necessarily what he just evaporated those houses with, because it can keep Striker on his toes if he messes up. Oh, here we go. So Erie's gone in, and now he's actually got an Asabara there as well to defend it. But I think the Carpenters are going to finish this off. In the meantime, while the Carpenters are down here trying to deal with this, Erie is going to have free reign of the north side of Striker's base. So Striker is going to pick off that ram pretty easily. But in the meantime, will he lose this topside town centre for his trouble? Erie is taking his third age in the meantime, has caught back up on score largely. But here we go, it's a big open gauge going on right now. Striker split up his forces. He's going to get another couple of really good connects here on the bows. Pulling some more back. Run away from these Asabara. Getting some nice target fired shots. But Erie manages to kill off this first little wall. Striker back down to only 10 of them. He does save the TC just in time. Man, this has been a great game. Man, I've really enjoyed this series. What can I expect with these two playing? So right now Erie, just waiting on his age 4 to finish up in a sense. He's sort of just maxed back out again. Striker has caught back up in maxing out as well, keeping himself to a 180 pop economy. And he's getting a whole bunch of upgrades instead, including some age 4 upgrades first before worrying about throwing down that TC and taking advantage of the 200 pop army and eco. So right now the Carpenters all gathering up, and Erie trying to decide what he can best deal some damage to before Striker takes a big engage, which he does. And there you go. So the Carpenters trying to target fire down a couple of units at once, try and deal some good damage at that point. The little amount of area damage is giving them some good damage with the infantry mixed in of the Eries here. But there's no front line left for Striker, so he's continually having to back off now. And Erie is staying slightly ahead on population in most of these trades because he's not necessarily losing cavalry the whole time. There's a good number of Sparabara that are coming into the mix that are falling, and a good number of Mortals that are coming into the mix that are falling, and they're only 1 pop units as opposed to the Asabara, which are the 2. So we've got the 3 pop, the 2 and 3 pop cavalry for the Celt player here. So in the meantime, he's really denying Striker's opportunity to continue gathering from up this side of the map. There's not really any protection left in front of these stables here of Strikers, so he's forced to have to try and take a really good fight right now, and he's actually popped his Rite of Endrasta, getting his bonus damage out against enemy units, and he's doing a good job of cutting through the front line of Eries. But Erie has a huge number of bowmen and Immortals here in the back as well to try and deal a bit of damage with. Actually, sorry, no, not Immortals, a couple of Immortals, a couple more Sparabara actually to try and tank, but it just doesn't seem to be enough now. Striker is largely cutting through these forces. He's still got 18 Carpenters, and Erie is down to only a fairly small force in comparison. 20 population down over Striker, and there's like no food in the bank. Striker able to hold desperately, but he does it. Erie's on 99 villages, Striker's on 91, so they've both really leveled out their endgame economy, but Erie losing a couple of villages for his troubles, and Striker relishing in the fact that he has now got the population lead, splitting his... That was the world's best splitting I've seen, and he even fucked it up twice then. But anyway, Striker grouping all his units back up again. He's really trading well with this mass Carpenter army, so I can see where the guys really talk up his his micro on this Civ. He's been doing a phenomenal job at using mass Carpenters to just try and fight off against anything Erie's been throwing at him in the Persian arsenal right now. Meanwhile, down here, he's also got some horsemen, so he's gonna try and deal some harass of his own. He's got some already heading in over here on Erie's farmland. So Erie has got a whole bunch of 21 farms here, 21 farmers to kill. In the meantime, Erie got his rams heading across. He's sniping some stables of Strikers, so that can be quite big as well, because if Striker doesn't notice, or if he sort of bottlenecks himself on wood, and the Carpenters, they cost a lot of wood themselves, so it can be quite hard for him to come back from that. So Both players doing what they can to really whittle down one another's economy right now. A good number of Carpentoms getting another couple of villager kills. And the stables here under threat, armory under threat as well. In fact, it might be quite good that the armories are in front if Striker's not really looking to take the upgrade anytime soon, because it sort of at least might save the stables. But Eerie is going to take one of the stables down, he's going to take another one down. Striker does just save on 87 health, so Eerie is going to tunnel onto that. Is he going to get it? Can he do it? The suspense. Meanwhile, we're losing a bunch of workers for his troubles. So Eerie does manage to pick it off. I think that was originally a mine there at that where that storehouse was, because there didn't seem to really be anything of note next to it. Eerie getting a fortress now, trying to sort of wall up his base a little bit, try and stop these Carpentoms from just running in and dealing all the damage. There's 30 population lead for Striker right now, so if he can just hang on, he can get the 2-0 here, I think. But Eerie will not be denied. He just wants to try and slip some more rams in, try and equalize things, get some more map pressure himself out, and try and fight back and hold on. He's got the water actually. He's not actually gathering from the water, funnily enough. He's completely sort of skipped it, but at least this sort of gives him control over a lot of these resources. That is, if he can put a stop to the relentless Carpentum usage of Striker. In the meantime, Striker having to desperately hold on with his villagers, trying to kill off the rams. I don't think he realizes there's a second one actually on there at the moment. He's trying to micro this force here, but Eerie's doing a nice job at actually walling his base up. So that backline market is going to still be functional for him. He's going to really be able to protect that. He's got these frontline ones there just in case, for whatever reason, the backline one goes down because of, say, range siege. There is a little bit more health left on this town centre for Striker, but he needs to try and mop that up quickly. In the meantime, Eerie needs to try and put a stop to these Carpenters in the top side of his base, because he is bleeding a lot of units from this still, and he just doesn't have a lot of food. And these Carpenters, meanwhile, over on the farm, Eerie's done a good job at mopping that up. He's only lost another couple of villages again before he's tidied things up. He's got a bunch of spearmen then there to really clean that up. Right now, Striker taking a bit of damage now. Probably could try and just take that fight, to be honest. But he's going to try and maybe snipe the villagers that are up here. But Eerie is going to try and wall them in. So Eerie getting the wall down, but it just isn't enough to keep all the Carpenters in that backside of the base. So they are going to come down here. They are going to try and get some more vital kills, because if Eerie can't gather the food here, Striker can try and force a GG through attrition. He's got so much more in the bank than his opponent right now. Eerie is holding on by the skin of his teeth at the moment. And there is just rams slowly sliding in everywhere into his base, but it just seems like Striker's got so much economy behind this. He just can't seem to seal the deal, so to speak. But he's going to get another couple of kills here. But Eerie is maxed out again. There's huge forces going to try and just go for the push, and there's not a lot here inside Striker's base. There's arrows and stuff flying everywhere again, and these Carpenters are perhaps a little bit too split up and thin in number at the moment. So Striker, he's going to have to try and come up with a way to get everything spent and get Eerie repelled here. There's more rams coming in on the stables. So Striker having to desperately use his villagers to try and fight over here. Meanwhile, there's another bunch of Carpenters being microed, just trying to hold on with everything they've got. A right just going down for Striker, so he's no longer going to have that damage bonus. Eerie is going to be able to just keep pushing into him for the next little bit before the Augur pops another one. So Eerie actually backing off for a second and repositioning. Wants to try and mass everything up. He's got 3 rams coming in at once now. Striker paying the price for not having walled up this side of the map, despite how much he's got in the bank. So is an auger. There is the auger there. Maybe try and convert some of these rams. So I wonder if he will. So one of the rams does fall, but in the meantime, Eerie being repelled over this side. One of his rams, but Striker doesn't have the units that Eerie does on the field right now. So Eerie, he doesn't have much in the bank, but he's just managing to max out and spend that little bit better, I think. And Striker not yet able to seal the deal, but he is going to go for a wonder right now. So if he can hold Eerie out for long enough, this will be really, really interesting, because Eerie is really able to dominate the map right now, and if he can respond to this well by potentially even destroying the wonder and doing the same, then it can be really, really hard for Striker to come back from that, even with the resource lead. There's a lot of ground Striker's going to have to cover. Eerie has really pushed him back. Eerie is, in the meantime, not that far from this wonder. So even though he hasn't got a lot in the bank, Eerie is just managing to maintain this bigger force, and Striker at the Carpenters now. I mean, well, he has been at the Carpenters for a while now, and he's seeming to be only able to rely on that just to take fights. At this stage, he's constantly making good trades, but is it enough? Eerie is just chipping away at everything he's got down here. He's taking more and more of the map, so Striker has to hold out for 10 minutes here. There's a whole bunch of stables here. All the workers are going to come running out now. He's going to throw up stables. He's probably going to throw up forts, towers, anything he can right now. Find himself a bit of a buffer. Get some units out on the field. He needs to get all these rams down, and Eerie has just got so many rams at the moment. Eerie's doing a wonderful job at pushing Striker into the corner of the map right now, and I think Striker is really going to have to work to try and hold on to this wonder right now. This is a good count on the Carpenters, but in a sense, Striker almost needs to risk them in order to try and deny these rams, because Eerie just has so many workshops, so many rams. He's just got everything head streaming into Striker's base, and Striker losing another town centre for his troubles. A couple of unfinished stables here of Strikers, but there is a town centre here for him. He's down to 3 town centres and the wonder, and just a bunch of stables basically, so there's not even any woads, no longswords, no berserkers, nothing for the Kel player, but yeah, the Carpenters and wonders and TCs. The stable's providing a nice little buffer. Striker just has so much in the bank that he needs to split his workers up and just throw down 30 production facilities right now. It's his only chance at this stage, because Eerie is really backed him in the corner right now. And with so much in the bank, but so little on the field, Striker is going to have to spend like absolute crazy. Going to have to split workers building up individual buildings, but GG. Unable to get the finish over Eerie, and Eerie just turning it around, carving up through Striker's base. So that's going to take us to game 3. It's going to be a really, really good game, this one, guys. Striker really opened a big lead over Eerie then, but again, just unable to close it out. Eerie fighting with everything he's got to turn the series around. Striker said, I guess that's what happens if you forget eco upgrades for 20 minutes. Yeah, that's true. So that was some phenomenal gameplay, guys. So, if we have a bit of a look at populations, it just seemed like Eerie always had so much more on the field, even when Striker was in the lead. Eerie Striker's saying, I guess we both bad because I said Erie only had that and pickers. Handsaw, that is. So Erie's population really taking a bit of a tumble thanks to Striker's harass there, but fortunately for him, he managed to rally things, really hold out quite well at a point where I thought he was going to run out of food for a little while there, and he just seemed to hold on with everything he had. So Striker unsuccessful in getting the 2-0, so we'll have to see who wins this third game. Oh, actually, that's what I gotta change. So the next map, there's no, let me change the text. Now this is making Wout cry. No Wout, no cry. I've just moved something, but it's all good because I can sort of cheat to put it back in place. Alright, so anyway, my voice is going funny. Probably all the tobacco in my throat. So I forgot to give you guys a bit of a wrap up on the actual gathering scores, but oh well, no matter, we cannot go back. So Shelter Pass for game number 3. Erie has locked up scores. I want to see what civs the guys are going to go. So our friend from Portugal is changing his civilization. He's unsuccessful in the first game as Persia against Strikers Norse, but then in that game in the Persia vs Celt, successful. So Erie is going to have a resurgence in the second half of the series and is going to attempt to murder Striker now. How dare you win the Dueling Islands game. So now, this brings us on to Sheltered Pass. Sort of the Dueling Caverns, if you will. Actually, if you guys are making a map named Dueling Caverns, that's a trademark term. Nah, I don't give a fuck. Go for it. I think it's a cool name. So you better use it on the next one now. I'm just messing with you guys. Anyways, Erie's jumped on Norse himself. Striker's stuck with his Celt. But it looks like we've got to try and spice up the host here because we've sort of hit a bit of a gridlock. I'm sort of already exhausted after a series like this. I hope you guys just sort of march into each other and murder each other in the next couple. Decisive victories are great victories. Nah, who am I kidding? If it's a great back and forth, that's also really cool. I love back and forth games. It's where the hype's at. Man, this game looks so pretty. I'm sorry about the swearing this week, guys. I know it's unprofessional. Well, I mean, depends on your profession, doesn't it? Greek prodromoi, cavalry units that excel at killing other cavalry units. Oh, cool. I'll remember to build some against every other bloody civ in the game. Okay, alright. Oh, did you guys check out this cool little icon in the top left? If you just notice every 5 minutes or so it actually switches. Yeah, PF2K did that, so thank him, don't thank me. It looks fucking sick though. Oh, there we go. I need a swear jar. Man, the game would be so rich if there was a swear jar for me. Okay, so we've got Eerie starting out on the Norse as the blue player, player number 1. He's got the player numbers back to front, but it doesn't matter because it's 1-to-1. Funny bugger. Alright. I don't think he probably intended to do that or whatever. Anyway, so he's got his hunt down here. Striker's got his hunt up here, so they've both got fairly risky hunt number 1. And Striker going for that early barracks. Eerie in the meantime, being Norse, is going to have a bit of a delay before an early barracks, even if he goes for it first after the first storehouse. So they start off with 50 less wood in exchange for getting a second scout, so to speak. Although their scouts are weaker, and they effectively do lose an extra population starting out because of that. But these are all just little things, man. So got a barracks coming out for the Norse player, and the Celt player already has his finished. So the Celt spears, super mobile, super deadly, super cool. Meanwhile, the Norse spears, they're tanky, they're buff, you know. They've got arms like carnage, bro. So right now, Eerie just running his scouts straight through the middle of Striker's base, saying, I don't care about whatever damage you do, I need to know exactly what you're doing at home. And meanwhile, Striker, he said, you know what, I'll sort of do the same thing and pinch a pair of your goats for it. How about that, sucker? And so Eerie, he's got the second storehouse coming up now. He's got his third storehouse for his other food, but Striker has already done the same. So Striker may be in the position to rally and push in here first. Eerie got his 4 spearmans. And ooh, a little bit of damage there to one of the scouts of Eerie, who's keeping them together. Probably because he wanted to try and take a little mock engage there and just see how far up Striker's going to come here. Because then he sort of knows where the army is, can get himself prepped to deal some damage, back out, deal some more, minimize as much risk to the workers as possible here. And yeah, Eerie's defense on Norse is typically extremely good, always making use of the 2 scouts where he can. Striker in the meanwhile using his scout continuously behind all this, trying to figure out everything on both sides of the map, be a little bit more proactive with it instead, rather than using it as a defensive tool. And so Striker, he's got this nice spear count, he's got his age 2 on the way. Eerie hasn't just yet, he needs a little bit more wood at this point, and this villager taking a bit of damage, not falling at this stage, but there is a longhouse here and under a bit of threat really. Single worker going to come up to repair that, but it is going to cost Eerie a little bit of wood for his trouble, and he is forced off this hunt yet again. So he's not actually able to really saturate the hunt properly. Now he is. And Striker getting the age 2 a little bit quicker than Eerie. But in saying that, Eerie, it's going to be not the world's most difficult defense in a sense. The Striker is opting to get his town center already, so he is not going to really be trying to all in him by any stretch. And it looks like Striker's actually been forced back from down here. Eerie may have got a couple of kills there, so Striker and well, Striker's still on 20 population, so he must have saved the villagers in time. But yet again, either player denying a little bit of gathering time and forcing each other back onto herdables, back onto berries, over the hunt, is always a little bit of an advantage in and of itself. There's a couple of goats heading back now. Striker got a single long swordsman, now another one. So he must just be rallying them all to there at this stage. He's got this primary mixed force here with a couple of long swordsmen, but not many sprinkled into it. So this isn't a terribly strong force for the Celtic player right now. He's hoping to try and maybe snipe this bunch of villagers again, so he's going to try and go for it, but he is forced away. A fairly slow throwing axeman, only 6 speed, isn't going to be able to chase them down. So with this Rhino, 7 speed, OP Rhino, Rhino's OP. So the Rhino getting a couple of hits off, very crucial, very crucial. Little bit of extra harass from Eerie's other minion, his OP Rhino unit, a Norse exclusive. I'm just kidding. Anyway, meanwhile, there's a couple of longswordsmen that have managed to fit through this little gap here that Eerie's actually tried walling up. So the stone has been forced out. A little bit of gathering time being cost there, but Eerie is going to be able to eventually probably snipe these. Oh, they are going to get out! Striker, you god! And meanwhile, over on the top side, big fight being taken, but Striker getting a couple of villager kills before all of his forces are really whittled down right now, and doesn't seem to get too many villager kills for it. Did he throw away those 2 there, or did he bring them back? I think he threw them away. So there's 2 that were over here. I think he just sort of, one of them got caught, or he tried to micro and rescue both and lost them both. So it's very sad. Whoops, very sad for Striker. Not so sad for Eerie. Not sad by any means for Eerie. Getting some really nice defense both sides of his base there. Making great use of the Norse infantry building. And if you haven't used this yet, you are crazy. Because this is essentially the economic advantage that Norse gets. Not having to dictate whether or not they want to spend the next 50 seconds of a worker building a barracks when they can just use 4 spearmen. You know, that's Norse's economic boost, whereas the Celt, you know, they get the Sacred Grove, they can produce their own deer, they get the gold mine, they can conserve and basically get gold over time rather than gather it, you know, 10 and then, or 12 or whatever, and then run it back to the storehouse. So Eerie right now, with a big force, Striker with a little bit smaller force at this stage. I think after having lost those initial units, Striker was a little bit stretched for fighting units now. Having taken the quick age 3-2, Eerie is responding in kind because he's going to try and deny the opportunity to get this 3rd town centre up, but he's a little bit too late in a sense. Striker is going to finish it with only fairly minimal villager loss, and he's got these 3 town centres quite well positioned, and oh, Eerie's forces are going to take a lot of damage running through here. That's basically 96 damage from the 3 of those added into the fight there, and it's something that you can't take out because that's 3 8,000 health units basically, 3 8,000 health archers raining down Parade, and Eerie now sort of running out as best as he can, but Striker has still got his bowman on the run, still microing his bowman really well. The single one attempting to run there. Eerie has really got him on the rocks right now. Striker has got very little on the bank, has got that age 3, but is getting very little resources incoming to actually do anything with it. He's got the 3rd town centre, but his villager production is completely cut. Eerie is still in age 2 at this point. And Striker getting up everything he can at the moment. There's units coming in from the north side of Striker's base, and Eerie is actually towered up one of the gold mines. So this is going to be a little bit tough for Striker to deal with. He's actually, this is quite smart. He's actually got the runner there, quite defendable distance. Good use of the bowman here to really force Eerie back, but there's a good count of the throwing axeman on the top side, so Striker is going to find it difficult to engage here. He's going to need to get something to tank and deal a lot of damage to the guard towers, or just run straight underneath, and the bowmen are really one of the units you don't want trading with the guard tower, even though they are one of the ones you really want trading with the throwing axeman. But so Eerie right now is trying to apply the killing blow, just trying to whittle down one of these barracks, try and get a tower creep here, because if you can get a tower here, it can be really hard for the bowman to come in, and you can start chipping away at these gold gathering villages, and it can almost be too hard for Striker to actually get anywhere from here. And there's a range coming up right now, so really wise choice for Eerie going, I won't necessarily be able to afford the raiders just yet. I haven't really got the work account to do so, and I want to keep applying the pressure so I can get the killing blow, because I'm going to keep throwing up the towers. He's going to try and get some of the skirmishers out, and they are going to have a little bit more range than the throwing axemen. Going to be a much better unit to have in the face of the bowmen. So the bowmen right now are going to pick up the last of these throwing axemen, but they are going to lose a couple of their friends for it. So Eerie is really trying to get a good surround, get a good contain on Striker right now, but Striker has got a really nice bow count. He's starting to add the cavalry in, so he is going to have some form of front line that's not going to be too susceptible to the throwing axemen either. So it's a nice transition from Striker getting another couple of stables. Eerie just outside of the range to be able to deal any damage to the villagers. He's instead chipping away at the storehouse, so Striker can just repair this in time. But in the meantime, on the top side of his base, Striker is going to have to deal with these raiders being added in, because he has no front line at the moment. Eerie is slowly trying to build up the cavalry count and then eventually overwhelm him, I think, as well as add some more towers into the mix possibly. A lot of really exposed villages around Striker's base. There's a lot of villagers not really doing a great deal either, and Striker again having to contend with Eerie's harassment from the south side of his base. But this horseman is going to be able to do a lot of the cleaning up here, and Striker is going to be safe once again for the next minute or so. He really isn't holding on by a lot at the moment though, and Eerie is getting the age 3, so Eerie is going to be able to start catching up in terms of the economic growth of his base. In fact, Eerie has taken a slight village of lead, and Striker actually has a couple of villagers inactive, not doing anything, standing around collecting the paycheck, the dole, living it up on benefits. Yeah, here we go. Now they're just trying to wall off, just trying to give Striker a nice, safe market line at the back of his base, but there's already some units here to try and mess with that. So Eerie really just trying to play Striker into a corner, just try and outplay him over the long game right now, and he seems to be doing a good job at it. He's really, this is really interesting, isn't it? Walling up that gold mine, he wants to deny Striker's ability to get any quick and easy gold, and Striker is going to have to try and take the best market line he can and try and hunker down and try and actually raid his opponent in this position too, because Erie is not being attacked at home at all, has not been for several minutes, and is completely comfortable over Striker's side of the map. So maybe Erie's got to do, maybe Striker's got to do something at home to really break Erie right now. But Erie seems to be playing all his cards right, seems to really be staying ahead economically. The gap between him and Striker in terms of score lead is sort of opening up a little bit time and time again. Striker is starting to bank a little bit more, he's starting to really catch up in population, but Erie, let's just have a little bit more in terms of the upgrades, and it's really a little bit more in terms of his actual static defenses going for him. Striker just now actually able to take the backside of his base. There's a bit of room here still to fit in a farm, fit in some stuff like that, but Erie is really sort of backed him into the corner like last game before we've even gotten to late game in a sense. And I suppose that's one of the beauties of Norse, it's going to be impossible for Striker to actually take, say, this gold mine without pushing Erie back, without dealing a bit of damage here, without taking a bit of damage himself up the front. And Erie's population lead is, yeah, sort of about 30 at the moment. Erie going to once again try and deny Striker the opportunity to gather any gold and perfect his defenses here on this rear side of his base. Oh no, the compass are coming from the... So this war here for Striker is only just going to survive. Erie once again retreating, trying to force his opponent to take a bad engage in response to defense. And Striker in the meanwhile is going to get a little bit of gold out of this. Erie is going to try and have to break away some cavalry to try and deal some damage to that and stop that from happening, but Striker has other plans. He's sniping individual units still. He's going to try and defend as well as he can and get his own fortress to try and break out of this. He needs to send something to deal with this far though, because if he can break through the walls, it can start dealing damage to the fortress. And yeah, now Striker's going to send reinforcement to defend against that. Trying to keep his units all tucked in behind the TC right now. So Striker is aware that that's all happened now. I've just seen his camera go over there. There's a big fight here, but the front line of Erie's not really standing much. There is still a good count of his throwing axemen though, so single villager. Going for it. Striker now. Gonna try and move in on Erie's force. He's got a big bowman ball. In fact, he's got 50 bowmen. It's only about 50 units there for the 40 units there for the Norse player entirely. So Striker's guard tower, Erie's guard towers are going to be under a lot of threat here, but Striker may lose a lot of ranged units for this. He needs to be really careful to get the horseman on there. That's quite risky of him. He really should be trying to rally the units back and actually force attacks from the horseman, or even just use the horseman to try and work them down alone rather than try and risk the bowman count. But anyway, Striker's better player than me, what would I know. Anyway, there's a big force here of Strikers, and Erie's seems to be about the same size. Oh no, actually, Erie's up by about 17 workers at the moment, so Striker's forces are a little bit larger at the moment. But he is trying to send in some siege, trying to get the snipes on this forward fortress. The production facilities for Erie now have fallen, but Striker is well behind on score at the moment, and he really needs to hunker down to play catch up, otherwise Erie is going to walk out of here with a 2-1. Okay. it looks as though Striker has bought himself a little bit of time, bought himself a little bit of breathing room. Won't be long until he gets this fortress, but there is a single worker actually building it. There's a single Hajar actually attacking the ram as well, so... So Eerie repairing the fortress in time. And meanwhile there's a bunch of farms going on down here. Gonna try and take out the storehouses and really slow down Striker's gold economy. It looks like Eerie's is actually really not faring too well. He's only got 100 gold in the bank. There's a couple of stables here now for Striker as well. A little bit interesting. Meanwhile, Striker haphazardly defending over the side of his base. He's lost a lot of these storehouses, but has got another one up. But these workers are going to have to get out of here fast, and there's not going to be an opportunity for them to just sneak down this backside. He hasn't necessarily walled up the long stretch there. But Eerie is going to try and go for the chase, and this is going to leave his forces split up. So Striker is going to have the opportunity to move into one army or the other. And he is going to be able to take a nice fight here, I think, because Eerie's other force up here is going to be a little bit further behind. He is going to try and get a nice pincer movement here, but he's right on Striker's doorstep. Even though he is so much population down there, he's still a really, really good bow count for the Kelp player, and there is these bowmen being intercepted all now by Striker as well. So these Striker does GG. He does eventually run out of resources, I suppose. He can't afford anything else, so he's down to one single food. He hasn't got... Yeah, he hasn't got any food at all. He's missed his... Oh, he's missed his sacred deer out of one of his things, and yeah, GG. Good game, well played, guys. Man, what a tremendous series. I thought Strike would walk out of there with a 2-0 for the first half of that series, to be honest. Commentator's curse, hey? How about that? But, yeah, what a great series, honestly. It's going to be hard to follow up on that one, guys. So Eerie eventually taking the win. A bit of a smaller force then in the end than Striker, and I think if Striker had it actually taken a good fight, then he might have been alright. But the fact that he doesn't have... He's got, yeah, no sacred deer on the map. He doesn't have any farms on the map. He's just not really able to gather. This is sort of too far away for him to be safely gathering from. But anyway, guys, we'll just be 1 second, then we might take a quick break before we get into the series number 2 today. So, I'll just be 1 second. What do we got here? Dueling Islands. So, for Dueling Islands, I'm gonna hide myself for a sec. I'm camera shy. Me? Camera shy? Impossible. Anyway, that was a really, really nice series there from the guys. Like I said, sort of rooting for Striker there with his initial play. He really, really phenomenal greedy play, and then really, really phenomenal aggression play. Just wonderful stuff. But Eerie, not to be defeated. True champion. Or one day he may possibly be. I really hope he is one day. Oh Jesus, that text is huge. I've done it again. I've done it again? Oh no, I've got lock 2. Okay, it's all good. Alright, so we've got the Spaniard and Casper. Game number 2. I know we're half an hour late. But yeah, like I said, guys, we're going to have a short break. I'm going to get in contact with the players, so we're going to get this all underway. Okay, we're back. Sorry about the delay, guys. So Chandler has stepped into the ring for a best of one with the Spaniard before Crimson jumps in. Sorry, I must have missed the fact that Casper couldn't make it. Anyways, we're going to start off with the best of one on Oasis. And so Chandler is on Egypt, the Spaniard on Persia. And hopefully it started without a hitch. So I will just take the time to get everything set up for us all today. He's back in position. And swap this to the correct name. Oasis. That's ugly. That's big ugly. That's huge ugly. That's better. There we go. So here we are for game number one of the best of one between Chandler and the Spaniard today. And we are on Oasis. The Spaniard going for an instant dock. And Chandler, the red player up here in the top side of the map. I never really introduced Spaniard there, so I sort of introduced Chandler anyway since I was halfway through it. So Chandler, the red player today, player number 2, Egypt, spawning the top side of the map here, taking his hunt at this point in time, and just scouting out the mid-map. Spaniard, the blue Persian player, spawning in the bottom side of the map, taking his hunt and his woodline now. He's already slipped in his dock at this stage, so he's already managed to gather just that little bit more optimally, so to speak. Chandler got his storehouse down now. Now, sorry, I take that back. The Spaniard is going to have to try and get some more wood now. Probably gathering a little bit too much food per se. But he only needs 3 rather than 5 if he's going to open with the dock first. So he's sort of congested his build in a sense there. He's just going to have to wait for a little bit more wood than he otherwise would if he was going a bit more wood than he otherwise would. And here he is even gathering. He's fishing up here, which is pretty quick. It's only beaten really by hunting until you've got upgrades. But it's not necessarily optimal. And yeah, like I said, he's probably best off getting as much wood as he can. He's going to try and pump out early fishing ships and going to need to try and age up and get a barracks. Whereas Chandler, free to age up already. So the Egyptian temples are actually how they age up. So in terms of the village counts as well, the 12 to 11 does count what's actually in queue as well. So this temple of Ra, it's basically aging up to age 2 for the Egyptian player. While the Persian player is going to have to bottleneck his work production in order to force out his age up. So that's one benefit of Egypt in a sense. And here we see Chandler actually getting his hands to upgrade quite quickly. So at mid tier, people honestly probably pay better attention to their eco upgrades and worse attention to their army upgrades than at high tier, and vice versa, you know, funnily enough. But then the funny thing is, mid tiers miss villages, so they're not actually able to make the perfect use of those eco upgrades. So that's just a funny little tidbit from a mid tier player myself. I just tend to notice a fair bit the trend, but high tiers tend to be a bit faster on the ball with the military upgrades, but slower with the eco ones a lot of the time. If they don't just outright forget them, and you know, it's sort of understandable as well. They skirmish a lot, high level players. Anyways, we see a quick stables coming out from the Egyptian player. So Chandler wants to try and get a bit of quick map aggression out. Wants to try and skip having to fight over the water initially, I think, possibly, and deal some harass around the map first. The Spaniard only now aging up, so he's going to be a bit slow on... Oh, here we see him actually getting a galley, so he's going to be able to have a fighting ship here ready to defend in the middle, but he's going to be slow on getting his town centre up. It's forcing out a couple of houses to make sure he's not going to... Oh, well, house and a storehouse to make sure he's not going to get population capped and can force out another galley if needs be, because he wants to try and make sure he can hold this water. But if Chandler sort of completely doesn't play into it and deals as much harass damage around the map as he can otherwise, perhaps he can really avoid having to play into it. So only time will tell on that one. The Spaniard actually opting to spend a bit more wood first before he throws down the town centre. Not necessarily a terrible idea, but it is going to mean in either case that instead of having the town centre or a stables, he's going to have these warships. He's going to have, yeah, extra buildings back here. But if Chandler can snipe something here, it might be really worthwhile for Chandler. So he's not actually finding the goats, but he is finding a couple of workers that are having to re-garrison. In fact, there's a lot of workers having to re-garrison here. So 13 garrisons by Chandler, and he's actually sending his camels back, and they are going to pick up the 2 goats. So really good position from him, and he's actually... The Spaniard, his opponent, is actually going to get the town centre on the go and take his handsaw now. So the Spaniard's build a little bit different to Chandler's. Obviously Chandler a bit faster on the handsaw, and actually not really any faster on the town centre in a sense. He had the much faster H2, but actually I read that backwards, did I? I'm crazy. Oh no, I didn't. Yeah. So Chandler actually had the faster H2, but the Spaniard not really too far behind, and saying that, Spaniard now having to try and defend against these camels because he's actually got the faster town centre slightly, doesn't have any production of his own, but the double TC fire is going to stop the camels from really getting too much too soon. It is going to mean that he is going to lose a lot around the edge of his base for free though, but in saying that, if he gets the conservation, well, the net lures conservation, gets the 3rd or 4th even fishing boat, he can really take advantage of that middle water. But in saying that, Chandler can look at massing up the cavalry, and they are one of the better units for dealing with the ships, because ships really strong against infantry, really strong against the range, but not quite so strong against cavalry. So in terms of the worker counts, we've got 28 for the Spaniard, 30 to Chandler, and so Chandler getting more production. The Spaniard only just adding his first land production facility now. He's getting his barracks, which is a bit of an odd choice, sort of. If you're this far into the game as Persia, you probably want to opt for the stables or the range generally. But in saying that, the Sparabara, or he might even be opting for Spearmen, is probably what he's going to go for. It's going to mean a cheap defense against the stables while he works on getting to being able to afford Asabara, because you know he's got this double town center already. He hasn't necessarily got a lot of... Oh, he's actually got his food up, both of his food upgrades. Chandler hasn't actually got his food upgrades just yet. So the Spaniard's actually really powered through a lot of his upgrades. Been spending a lot so far, and perhaps maybe to make use of all that in the upcoming couple of minutes. Chandler, on the other hand, reasonable camel count here, and he's going to try and interrupt this follow-up couple of stables here from the Spaniard. Well, he's actually going to try and go for all the villages. He does force one stables to cancel. One of them does manage to finish up in time. And there is a spearman there in time to try and pick off that low health camel. So Chandler weaving in and out of the Spaniard's base, doing a little bit of damage. Spaniard moving up to a 3rd fishing ship, but it looks like Chandler, he's tempted to try and pinch them, but he goes, oh, if I stick around there too long, I might take too much fire. So Chandler weaving in and out of there, not dealing any damages per se, but he's keeping an eye on what's actually on the lake, how much Spaniard's getting out of it. It's a bit of healing for the camels right now. The other stables is going to finish up in just a moment, and there hasn't actually been any Asabara come out yet for the Spaniards, so 43 to 44 on the village accounts. They're pretty neck and neck. Obviously Egypt sort of gets the benefit if they're using a lot of priestesses of the conservation, lock up a bit more population, but they do get a bit more gathering out of it, and it's not really represented on that actual statistic. Right now Chandler moving up for a more mid-map sort of hunt here. The Spaniards actually got a couple of goats over that side of the map as well that he hasn't picked in. So that's 4 goats the Spaniards sort of missed out on that he did initially scout. A little bit of a shame. Probably could have used the food. I mean, in saying that, he does have the water, so perhaps sort of his idea is that he lulls his opponent into maybe looking for the sheep, or the goats, sorry. Because Chandler wouldn't have seen them in his base. And right now, Chandler circling around the outside of the Spaniard's base, wanting to try and go for something, anything he can. So the Spaniard actually gathering a fairly forward berries there, because he know he can defend it with the ships for the meantime. But Chandler trying to wedge his camels in here, try and pick off a villager or two. He knows he's not going to get the armory. Well, he probably could have actually, but he's thinking, if I trade a couple of camels for a couple of villagers before the Spaniard can really get his army going, perhaps it's a worthwhile trade. The Spaniard taking age 3, 47 villagers to 54 from Chandler, so there's a little bit of a harass around the map. Seems to be doing a bit of work. His opponent's tied up trying to age now into at that town centre as well, so there's actually nothing coming. Oh no, there is a couple of upgrades coming out of the other town centre right now for the Spaniard. He wants to try and get a bit more vision anywhere on the map as well where he's got buildings. This is interesting, both of these players really side by side, they're just about holding hands here. We got 3 Asabara heading through the back of Chandler's base. Not going to be able to deal a great amount of damage considering that there's a greater number of camels. There's a couple of chariot archers here as well, so Chandler is going to be really able to transition to a nice cavalry axeman composition. I think he's probably what he's going to try and aim for. And the Spaniard, he's hit Silver Age himself now, so he's going to be getting more Asabara. Maybe get some mounted archers in behind. I'd really like to see that. I think if he comes over to the dark side and learns that the only way to play Norse and Babylonian late game is just build as many mounted archers as you possibly can and just attack your opponent from everywhere, then yeah, we'll be in for a really interesting game. If not, there's a lot of things he could really still do, because I mean the Immortals are going to be good against the Axemen, and he sort of just needs to make good use of mixed cavalry or, you know, mounted archer or Asabara, and some spearmen, and he can probably put some damage in against his Egyptian opponent right now. And Chandler looking at seizing the lake now. He's sort of got the units to be able to kill the warships before he can lose too much infantry for it. He's even brought a couple of priestesses along, tucked them in behind the army, going to be able to heal everything back up before long. And here we go, some mounted archers coming in to try and mop up, but there's just not enough here, and they've only been brought in alone, so they're really going to get singled off. The Spaniard is sort of going to get punished for that. There's not a lot of other army here. Now there's units popping out, but Chandler is up by about 40 population at this point in time. The Spaniard losing everything on the water there pretty much for nothing, and the single tower here now as well is going to fall. There is a nice infantry force actually behind this to deal with it, but it's just not going to be enough units, I don't think. But there is a warship coming out now. Sort of well timed. Maybe if he focuses the priestesses, might be the way to go, because it's going to be really hard for him to cut through this front line with so little units when there is the 2 priestesses there healing everything up. It's not a huge amount of healing, but it is enough considering that there's not a lot of units streaming in from either side. Both players really only fighting with, you know, Chandler's got probably a bit over 50 population in terms of his army count, and the Spaniard doesn't really have much of any other than what he's got over in here and back at Chandler's base, and he's managed to force a nice couple of pullbacks. He's down to 52 workers himself, but Chandler's only on 46, and Chandler is bringing back a lot of his cavalry to try and deal with this, and is having to garrison a lot of things at once, so the Spaniard is really slowing down the tempo of the game, but Chandler splitting his army up. He's going in without the camels because he says, you know what, bugger it, I don't see a lot at home for the Spaniard at this point in time. I might be able to put this pressure on. And in fact, this third TC of Chandler's is chipping away at these forward villages for the Spaniard. It's not going to be too good because he's going to lose a couple of crucial villages at this point in time. There is a siege tower already milling across the map, so those Asabara, they all got cleaned up in the end. Right now we've got 53, 46 villages, so Chandler still a little bit down in terms of that, but I think he's got a little bit more in the bank. Seems to have a little bit more upgrades going, a little bit more army supply, a lot more army supply really. The Spaniard hasn't really been able to build up his army at all really. He's lost those Asabara, he's lost all the Asabara. I don't see any anywhere on the map, so the Spaniard, yeah, hasn't really got much of a fighting force at all, and GG. Well. Yeah, so in terms of the current army, like, there's sort of a fight there where it all seemed to just go downhill for the Spaniard. He just could never max back out, and Chandler took a decisive fight from then on because he could never really remax behind that. The Spaniard opted for a raid instead, and it left him a little bit light at home, but I don't think that's necessarily the problem. But then he sort of lost them once Chandler split his army up, well, bringing back the camels, just them to deal with the Asabara, pushing in with everything else, able to put him under a nice siege here. GG, guys. I'd love to be able to do with game 2 and 3 of this. Yeah, so GG, guys. I'm just going to be a sec. I think my voice is starting to get a bit funny, probably need a bit more water again. So it should be time for... Where's Crimson? Is he online yet? Yeah, he is. Okay, cool. Magic. Cool, alright. Now, we've got that best of one out of the way. So thank you for stepping in, Chandler. And we're going to go back to the home city. Because we've got Crimson versus the Spaniard. For our series number 3 today. It was a Spaniard versus Crimson for game 3, wasn't it? Alright guys, I'll just be a second. I think Spaniard's just gone for a quick break. How's that overlap? Oh, he's just sieve swapping. Cool. All right. Perfect. Now I'll just adjust this. What to the Spaniards? Now these are gonna be super overlapping. Best of 3. Okay. Let's swap this. Okay. What is Crimson doing? Yeah, is Crimson here? Oh, he'll be back in a sec. Okay. Cool. Alright, well I might take a quick smoke break and we'll get series number 3 on the road. And now we are back live, all the way from right across the world, from down under to wherever. And I'm going to invite everybody. Is the Spaniard coming or? Alright, so it'll just be 1 second. Spaniard's just, I think, shuffling some vanity, probably. Alright, sorry for such crappy continuity this stream. I know it really hurts the viewer count, guys. But it's a bit of a pain in the ass just to sit here for 2 hours and then have another series where someone's late and then sit here for another 2 hours after having organised that. Bloody, all in a row. I need a smoke or to go get water or have a pee. So, alright. We got Dueling Islands, or Dueling Islands. Sorry, Casper. I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to make you self-conscious about it. Okay. I forgot the colours right. So, the Spaniard. Oh, it's player 2. Crimson is player 1. So, no, I don't. I'll swap them over just for a second. And then we should be ready for Dueling Islands as a mirror matchup, guys. I'm not going to spoil it until we load in. I'll leave you waiting in suspense for our Dueling Islands. I'm sorry, Casper. I'm so sorry. Alright, here we go. Ooh, I'll just fix that up. That's a little bit crooked. It's like a parent adjusting their kid's collar on the t-shirt. I feel so proud whenever I do it. Anyways, spawning on the top side of the map as the blue Greek player, we have Crimson Cantab, and spawning in the bottom corner of the map, or the bottom left and top right, really. Sort of use StarCraft analogy because it's easy. It's Ez game. We've got the Spaniard as the red Greek player. So both players. Well, actually, sorry, I take that back. Yeah, both players playing Greek, but the Spaniard opting for a double storehouse opening. Crimson opting for distance gathering for now and a quick dock. So I wonder if he's going to try and pump out. Yeah, he is going to pump out a quick fishing ship and then maybe look at trying to take a fast stage 2. So possibly a similar sort of strat to how we saw Erie approach the map, where getting the water is sort of the critical part of the build beyond everything else. So maybe Spaniards sort of trying to take a leaf out of Striker's book, where the more you can actually gather up on the land before you take the water, and the better you can do it, the more optimally you can do it, you know, the more you've actually got to seize the water with, and the more you can actually transition into really, really heavy water play in the mid-game without having to take age 3. Because I think that was sort of the crux of, I don't know, where Striker's build ended up a little bit little bit ahead. Might have been a bit more to do it with the matchup as well. Like with this one, they're going to have the exact same warship with the last matchup. Obviously, Striker had the stronger initial warship, but then Eerie could transition onto a counter warship. But then in saying that, obviously, it gets a bit tough because the counter warship, you want to have them in the fights, but you don't want them just up the front a lot of the time taking heavy damage just because they're so bloody slow. And you just can never really get good connects with them. Well, I suppose at least with the Greeks as well, you know, they're both going to have fire ships, both going to have triremes, and even both going to have ballista triremes as well. So both civs, I mean both players in this matchup are playing a civ, the same civ that has got a really good siege age 4 option, and any of the ones with age 4 siege ship on this map tend to really have a bit of an advantage over any of the others in the late game, and it really tends to make up for potentially having weaker ships earlier. So the Spaniard taking away to dock, actually throwing down a fairly risky house, I'd say, because it's quite easy to poach buildings like that going into a longer game. But in saying that, it does free up land inside his base to throw down a lot of farms later on, and try and have a really efficient market line, or a really safe one. So now he's taking age 2, and we can see he's actually spawned with a node right on top of his TC. So he's got this stone mine he literally doesn't need to throw down anything for, and he gets not optimal gathering, because realistically optimal gathering would be to have it probably on this south side here, or even on the north side if you've got rotatable camera. I don't, for some reason. It pisses me off. I need to go back through my bindings and fix it. For some reason I must have disabled it when I was a noob. Basically if the snow mine was about here, it'd be absolutely optimal, but that's pretty damn close to optimal. And right now, Crimson going for H2 himself, a little bit slower, so the Spaniards is kicking in now. He's going to be not far off having a town centre up, but Crimson, he's going to have the stone for his town centre by the time his H2 kicks in as well. He's already got 2 docks compared to the 1. The Spaniard actually going for a bit of a scout here, so he is going to see Crimson stuff, and he is going to go for a bit of a wander, as Crimson hasn't done any scouting of his own. So the Spaniard still sending this little fishing boat around. He wants to figure out, what are you doing, Crimson? What are you doing? But Crimson, H2 kicking in slightly slower, but he can, yeah. Oh, he hasn't actually got the stone to throw up his town centre. But neither does the Spaniard, who's overgathering a little bit of stone. But perhaps he wants to try and tower up as well. In fact, he wants to go for a distant bloody expansion here. He wants to try and take one of the islands out early. Try and potentially even confuse his opponent a little bit. And even though he's losing a lot of gathering time, a lot of crucial gathering time considering it's a fishing ship, he is also getting a really good scout on his opponent, discovering not only both docks but also the TC, so he knows exactly what's going on in Crimson's base. Crimson sending out the trireme initially and actually missing the Spaniard, so the Spaniard in the position to snipe a ship, but I'm not sure why he doesn't. He backs out initially. I think he's sort of worried that Crimson's already got a ship on the map, and he's right, because there is a trireme. These triremes are actually really tanky as well, so Greeks OP. Oh, what are you? This is genius. If he gets away with this, the Spaniard, if you get away with this, you are actually God. If you take game 1 doing this, man, I think I'm gonna give you $10. Man, I don't know if that's a promise I should be making, considering I don't have a job at the moment. Oh, some really good dodges there. But he is the ship down. He is cramming out another one now, but he's only got a single dock. Crimson's got double dock, so he's going to have double warship production. And he's already got the second town centre. So the villager counts, he got 24 to 28, so Crimson's already 4 villagers ahead. He's actually got 1, fishing boat compared to 2-1 on the fishing boats. So really it's about 5 villager lead. But he is having a gold mine poached here. And the Spaniard, when he can get the wood for this, is probably going to look at throwing up a couple of docks and a lot of towers. And if you can get this in time before Crimson can really get an Age 3 eco underway, it can actually be really hard for Crimson to try and deal with this at home. Because anytime the Spaniard looks at tower creeping, or even throwing down production facilities, or even taking fights villager v villager, it can be really hard for Crimson to try and do anything. And even if Crimson does manage to force him off the water, he's already got that to contend with on the land. So there is a guard tower coming out straight away. I'm a bit surprised there wasn't already a guard tower here from the Spaniard, and that might come to hurt him. But in saying that, Crimson is going to back off because he has scouted this little outcrop already. But the Spaniard, if he can get these villagers to get onto the guard towers ASAP, he can really defend from here. So it's a big number of the triremes headed in, and we got 39 to 33 in the villager counts. The merchant transport is going to fall. Free up a population slot. Oh, that's not nice for the Spaniard. So he really needs to get these villagers onto these buildings here before he's got any chance of really being able to do something. And Crimson's responding in time. He's got tri-stables coming out, so triple Sari production compared to 1 Sari production is really going to hurt the Spaniard here, I think. But that guard tower finishing up is going to be a big hit, because they are going to deal 4 times damage to ships, so it is hitting for 100 damage per shot now. Well, it doesn't actually work out to that much. It's actually a little bit less. They've got a bit of pierce armor, 50 damage per shot though, so it is quite strong. Meantime, while these two are triremes are sacking this dock, oh, that's really risky putting that out there. The Spaniard probably would have looked at just docking up the other side of the map. In saying that though, Crimson's going to have to slow down and try and get enough Saris to really push through and take this out. And he even needs to get possibly something to front line here. This fishing ship, it's a bit of a risky gambit. He's throwing down another tower. It's really going to make it hard for Crimson to take any of this out, but if he can get an Age 3, he's going to have the siege to be able to deal with this. Neither player's actually expanded to anywhere else on the map, so right now looks like Crimson's got quite a fair bit of control over the map situation. Although on his own island, he really needs to look cleaning this up before the Spaniard can get a roll on here. Although he leads too much damage to the town centre, it might not be too good for him. And it's not a high Sari count. Really sort of tough matchup to probably try and do this Greek Pig Reef. In fact, I'd say just about any other matchup, playing something like this and then trying to transition to a land army to sack your opponent when you're behind on eco, it'd probably be easier as just about any other civ into any other civ, really. Because he's really well down on the Sari counts, and this is going to make it hard for him, but he's going to have the towers, but a couple of them are still shooting up there. If he can micro them onto all the Saris and get as best hits as he can, then he can get a lot of kills here before Crimson can tidy up any villagers. Right now it's 53 to 47 of the villager count at the moment, so a couple of them making it inside the town centre. A couple of them are going to finish off here, but oh, Crimson getting a good connect there. He does manage to finish one off. So we've got 46 to 54, so 8 villager differential at the moment. A lot of Saris for Crimson still. He's still up to 14. Still producing 2 at a time, getting his tier 1 upgrades on them, so the Spaniard making plenty of stone still. Starting to really get on his gold mine. Doesn't have a lot of food or wood back at home being gathered, and is pretty much surrounded on nearly every side by Crimson at home, so he really needs to look at, he's got a warship coming out now, and he needs to possibly look at maybe making another island hop here and denying Crimson the option to do so. Maybe if he does something similar to what Striker attempted last game, and island hopping on the far side as he holds here, Maybe that's the way forward for him. Meanwhile, Crimson probably desperately needs to try and break through this, or look at taking this distant island here, because no doubt there'll probably be a gold mine on that. And if he can get on that, it's really going to make things easier, because that's going to be within tower range. These three are going to finish up fairly soon, really. Well, maybe not those two so much, but it's going to be harder and harder for Crimson as things goes on, because everything back at Spaniard's base is pretty much safe. And this storehouse is going to fall. Crimson gingerly trying to take a fight over here, but he's going to manage to snipe a villager and then try and run away from the warships. It is 2 versus 1 there, so 3 versus 1 actually. But there is the repairing fishing boat, so unless that gets sniped, it could really... Oh, there we go. That's what we want to see. All these triremes are coming back, so the Spaniard has the opportunity to retake his own water now. Maybe look at, yeah, again, island hopping if he can afford to do so, but I don't think he can. But he is going to try and fit in at age 3, so he really needs to look at getting something on the land here to try and steamroll through Crimson, because Crimson has all those stables still. So perhaps if the Spaniard, the 6 stables, so if the Spaniard goes on Prodromos and maybe gets the barracks as well, perhaps, and a siege workshop patch, he might have enough to do it. He's really got to get off that stone or spend it though, so he needs to either get towers and forts, and here we go. The Spaniard needs to either get towers and forts up or a market so he can actually spend that stone on something else. But yeah, these villagers are going to look at moving forward in a second. Crimson just scouting out right now. He wants to make sure he doesn't give himself away here. He doesn't want to give up the game just yet. He wants to do something similar to the Spaniard and try and do it a little bit deadlier if he can. He's got the score lead over the Spaniard, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily won it from here. But that's a nice fortress placement. And meanwhile, over at Crimson's TC, the Spaniard is forced back again. So all the Saris of Crimson with their extra upgrades, I think he's got +1, and we've got 65 to 54 villages. All those upgrades on the Saris are going to come in handy for him. Anytime he gets a slight unit advantage, he's utterly going to clean up the Spaniard's army. But the Spaniard has got these towers as well, so the towers are really going to rip through the Saris eventually, but the more Pierce armor they get, the harder it's going to take, the longer it's going to take, because the harder it's going to be for them to actually deal any reasonable percentage of that damage. So we've got a fortress finishing up, and that's really going to deny the Spaniard's opportunity to gather from his own gold back at home. And Crimson has got a wonderful economy here on the lake. On the ocean. It's not a lake, Sean, it's an ocean. Ooh, we see fire ships coming out, so they're slow moving projectiles, but they hit really, really hard against the ships. Unlike the ram ships, they don't get bonuses against buildings, but they deal a 4 times multiplier against, 2 times multiplier against ships, sorry. And they can still hit land units. So, ooh, Crimson looks like he's got the siege up and going on the Spaniard's land now. And the Spaniard is really being forced off the island now. Get off my property. It's more towers though. 8 towers in total. Another dock being thrown down. Last of the Saris is going to fall, and Crimson doesn't really have a lot to actually... Well, he's got a bunch in queue. He's got another wave worth in queue, but not a lot more to afford. But he is going to mass them up back at the Spaniard side of the map. He's actually getting a siege workshop back at home to try and deal with this fortress. But with the Saris there and maybe some prods, it's going to be very, very hard for that ram to make it all the way to the fortress. Unassisted anyway, but we've got some fire ships coming in now. So they're going to be able to tidy up down here at the back of Spaniard's property expansion into Crimson's base. So this is really heating up to be a great game. I'm absolutely loving this one already, and here we go. We've got a town centre on the Spaniards' main island from the Crimson, and the Crimson sort of in the position to even take, ooh, I was going to say his third town centre on another island, but he's already got it on his main island, that's, of course, so maybe his fourth town centre he can sneak onto another island as well. And this is really going to hurt the Spaniard because now Crimson has largely done the same thing to him. He's just starting to get in a position where he can get as many, if not more, production facilities on that starting island of his opponent, while the Spaniard has actually got his second dock. Crimson expanding over to another island. The Spaniard just trying to tidy up Crimson's little expansion on his base, but he's not going to have enough units now. And he's got a lot of stuff at home, but he doesn't have a lot of units. He's got a fort over the back and not over the front. He's only got one stables there. And a couple of stables over on this side of the map as well. Doing everything he can to gather and maintain a good position here though. But it looks like Crimson is really expanding out and holding all that land on the water. I mean, holding all that area on the water. Getting all that fishing done is really doing a lot for him. 84 to 61 the villager count, so I think last time I checked it, it was 8 or 10 difference, so things are really starting to snowball toward Crimson's favour when it comes to sorry, when it comes to the economy. Right now, the Spaniard is doing what he can to snipe some more production, or Crimson can really get going on his island, because the Spaniard in the meantime is still tower creeping. He's all the way up to 10 towers on his opponent's base, and he's actually going to start focusing down these fishing ships. These houses over here, and this is really good sort of protection for all this gathering that he's doing on Crimson's base. But Crimson, in the meanwhile, is going to try and finish up a fort, so the Spaniard is going to have to try and defend with something, and he can't fit in a workshop unless he deletes a house, or he chucks it up here. But then if he chucks it up there, Crimson's going to see it, and trying to ferry the rams all the way across the map is going to take forever at this point in the game, I think. So right now Crimson holding on with this single stables on the Spaniard's island, but in the meantime he seems to be making waves, making a little bit progress here, winning back these resources on his own island. And there's a second fort going up here, so Crimson even fitting in ashlar masonry, so that's a flat 25% increase to all your building health. So regardless of what it is, it becomes that little bit less vulnerable to siege, or to really any unit. The siege is probably the most important factor. Crimson really solidifying his position over here. He's optimally mining from 2 storehouses on the gold mine, and he's even getting a bit of wood from another. But he's really quelling the Spaniard's attack. There's a tower about to fall. He's got fire ship advantage here. He's got more Sari, so he's got the advantage of that. He's just got to tidy up these towers, but the fortresses are going to clean up all but this one in terms of ones that are really going to prove to be problematic over resources. But in the meantime, the Spaniard has won his main island back, and he's, well, I wouldn't say that just yet, but he just about has really. He's got the greatest Sari count. He's got these. There's no production here from Crimson. Oh, there is one coming out. Oh yeah, here we go. But he has managed to end that town centre. Meanwhile, Crimson is sort of in the position to take one up there or take another one back at home. I think he is probably going to opt for, yeah, he is. He's going to opt for one on this island over here. It is sort of close to the Spaniard's base too, so it is a good idea sort of doing this, trying to pinch one of your opponent's islands, because there's a 50-50 chance really that he's going to expand there next, and if he does, you're already there. Chances are he's going to try and put his TC where you just had yours, lose his villagers because he's not paying attention. He's trying to take a fight elsewhere on the map, and yeah, it just becomes sort of too much for your opponent to deal with on the spot when there's all sorts of other chaos going on. Man, I wonder why we haven't cast some more games on this, because this is crazy. So the TC is going to fall for Spaniard. but in the meantime, another fortress for Crimson, so perhaps the Spaniard needs more fortresses. Maybe that's the answer. He needs forts. Forts OP. Because it looks like these towers are eventually going to get chipped down by everything, but not before Crimson loses some units doing so. But he's really starting to get strapped for wood, so he's going to need to get on there soon. Even on this underside of this base, but over here he seems to have plenty of... we see a bunch of merchant transports coming in, so Crimson, instead of worrying about caravans, because there's bugger all space for caravans on this map, so just forget it. Instead of worrying about caravans, Crimson is just opting to really max out his gold lines with some merchant transports, running them between the two islands, so that's going to prove to be quite effective for him. A bit interesting, offering just that back and forth. Probably just had it on patrol, but I don't know why you'd have a single unit on patrol in the middle of nowhere. Anyway. So it looks like most of this has been tidied up. Meanwhile, it doesn't look like the Spaniard has much in the way of a fighting force left. It's not really much down here at home. He's just sending in individual units, but it's not enough. He really needs to pile units back up at home and then move out before they get overwhelmed, because Crimson has already got the unit advantage on his own, on Spaniard's own island. It's largely the same game he's going to have to play. Crimson played earlier, but I don't know if he's got the resources. He really needs to expand over here, really possibly needs to even expand over here, because he's just going to be strapped for it in a minute. There's no wood over this underside of his base. There's only a little bit more over here and a little bit more over here that it's really going to be easy to get without it being contested instantly. The forts are going to lock up these woods, and yeah, it's going to be really hard for the Spaniard to even get here or over here. Forget about it. He needs to try and gather from down here in the near future, as well as try and push this off if he can, or possibly just leave the Saris here. Maybe if he sabotages something here, I don't know, but he's well down in score at the moment. Crimson getting age 4 now. This has been a really silly game. This could go on for an hour. If it does go on for an hour, we're having a smoke break at 45 minutes. The golden age now from Crimson, who's getting even more upgrades in terms of the village accounts as well. 89 to 99, so economically the Spaniards not too badly off, but bearing in mind a lot of that's fishing ships and merchant transports, really cost effective gatherers, well, population slot effective gatherers over villages. It looks like the fortress is going to fall, so the Spaniard is going to have just enough to break through this, I think, unless the warships can intervene. But is it going to be enough? Because there's some more Saris coming in to try and help out. Another little drop here. Perhaps he could have tried to drop them in somewhere else. He's trying to circle the ships around. I think he's trying to look and see if there's anything else he can go for over on this other lake, but he's going to be a bit disappointed in a sense. It's a big Sari count from the Spaniard compared to only 13. It's, yeah, 21 to 13 for the Spaniards, so Crimson doesn't have enough, and these upgrades aren't going to kick in quickly enough, I don't think. And if this ram can make it through, get 1 or 2 shots off. These Saris here in the way though, it's really forcing these rams around, and that way the triremes can take part. They are doing that little bit more damage. Got some fire arrows coming out, some of the Greek fire, so that's going to mean the Spaniard is going to play really careful with buildings. Even ranged units are going to be able to deal just that little bit more damage. And so that ship still on the explore. Crimson wants to make sure that he knows where everything is, and the Spaniard has pushed him off his main base and is taking some upgrades now. He's only got tier 1 upgrades coming through, the Spaniard, but in terms of score he's catching up. The Spaniard is really starting to get the same sort of bank that Crimson's got. The Crimson... Ooh, GG, there we go. He does get the tap out because the Spaniard, I think he's realised it's probably too late to be just on the one island. He is still well down in score. GG, guys. What a game. Holy shit. In terms of the final village account, ended up with 88 to 95. So the Spaniard actually, with the lead in the final village accounts, not killing those last couple of villages. Unless Crimson actually deleted some, possibly. Anyway, what a crazy game. So Crimson basically all got stripped out except for down here, where the Spaniard really held him up. Just having a quick look at the stats. So Crimson gathering a lot more than the Spaniard in that, but I don't think he necessarily traded terribly well because those early towers would have gotten a lot of Sari kills. And the Spaniard actually a lot more proactive with creating villages the game. He didn't hold on to them necessarily. A lot of the time I think he was down on the village account. Oh, actually, Crimson with the overall kills. Okay, well I was completely proven wrong then. Anyways, here we go, village account. So the Spaniard mostly down on them, but quick to retrain all of them, and even by the end of the game, actually slightly ahead on them, but just not enough to repel Crimson. So we're gonna head back home in just a second and swap to Oasis instead of Dueling Islands. Osiris. Oasis. Sorry, I sort of had a brain fart there. Man, you guys will talk about best song this, best song that in AoE. This would be one of them. Why? Surely this would be up there in your little heart of hearts. You guys must know that this is one of the most banging tunes on the track. Anyway. So we've got Oasis, game number 2. Now, let's see if the Spaniard can right the wrongs and undo the failings of the past and storm the Oasis today. Or will he be vanquished by Crimson? Let's find out, guys. Everything looks good. Okay. So, spawning in the middle of the map, we've got this ball and ass lake with heaps of fishies that both players are going to try and fight over religiously, zealously, passionately. Meanwhile, spawning in the top side of the map, we have Crimson Kentab as the blue Persian player. Looks like he's going to try and force out a fairly quick barracks right now. Yes, and that is what we do see, because his opponent, the Spaniard, the red Celt player, and he's actually gathering from the berries. Why are you gathering from berries, my boy? You finished the storehouse. Why? Oh, there we go. So we've got the quicker barracks coming out from the Spaniard, but actually, was it? Yeah, it was slightly quicker. It's about 100 health quicker. So already we see that both players are going to be either playing quite aggressive or quite defensive. Someone's going to be getting their body spanked here in a minute. Neither player, going for their second storehouse even, because they can't afford it. But Crimson, not far off it. Oh, actually, there we go. The Spaniard's already got his. I'm talking smack again. And so there's Spearman, there's 2 Sparbara, 3rd in production. There's 2 Spearmen. Come on, a 3rd in production. And Crimson, having a sticky beak, wants to know what's going on over here. Fairly risky house actually from the Celt player. Perhaps using it there might be ideal, because then it provides a really nice cover for the wood line. Ooh, but this is quite smart. The Spaniard has basically raided his opponent's sheep. And Crimson's even sending units to go and scout them. I mean, sending a villager to go and scout them along with all of his bloody Sparbara. So that actually is a pretty big tell to the Spaniard in a sense, because he sees just how many Sparbara that Crimson's gone up to. And right now, Crimson is forcing out a house because he's, sort of housed. Possibly could have even looked at sneaking in Loom then to sort of make up for that, but right now we got 14 villagers, 15 from the Spaniard. So the 16 to 14. So the Spaniard is actually MLG Pro right now. Has not missed a villager, at least to my knowledge. But he's on 6 spears to 5 Sparbara, or 6 and 7 up here. But he is also going to have to fight against OP Wolf. OP Wolf is going to die. So OP Wolf does valiantly defend Crimson Kentab's base from evil, meanie, old the Spaniard. Poor doggies. But anyway, it looks like we're having another big engagement here between the two. 8 v8. So 17 to 20 in terms of village count. What's going on back here, Crimson? Do they train in the same amount of time? They do. Perhaps a bit rattled by his previous game then. The Spaniard, despite losing, playing the tighter economic game than his opponent, slightly, and has eked out a couple of extra workers, but in saying that now Crimson is taking his age too, so perhaps the Spaniard better get his in action, which he is. And right now there's a big Sparbara count of 10. And there's 8 spears here to try and deal with them, but they're on the other side of the base. And unlike the Persian player, no one else gets the benefit of easy tents. So we've got the barracks here being interrupted. Kind of hurt the Spaniard because that was about half finished, so that is going to cost him about 100 wood and all the building time. And he's got these idle villagers, keeping them safe, and he is rallying them back on the hunt, so that is good follow-up from the Spaniard. So his economic play overall has been pretty tidy this game, to be honest. He's got H2 now, momentarily behind his opponent. Well, not momentarily, a little bit behind his opponent, but he's gonna be prepared. Ooh, he's got a lot of stone. That's a lot of stone, not enough wood. Crimson's gonna be able to try and take the town center right on the lake, actually. So 11 spears to 13 Spybar. And is there another production facility? Yeah, we've got a range coming down. Got 3 Raxes coming out. Pumping out long swordsmen continuously now, so the Spaniard needs to be careful though. He needs to look at trying to get something to deal with the ranged on the map, because otherwise he's not going to be able to push in to the Persian player unless he pushes in quickly enough that there's no critical mass of bows. And it looks like Crimson is straight on getting the bowman out. The dock finishing now means that Crimson might take a fight that isn't so good for him, because the long swordsman count is already pretty hefty. There's 6 long swordsmen in tow, and the Spybar pretty much fall 3 for nothing there, I think, or 4 for 1. So not too good of a trade for Crimson, and the Spaniard already has that early dock ready to go. But in saying that, Crimson has got his 8 tent tech now, so he's going to be able to start regenning, and every sort of fight until the Celt player gets some druids out, the Persian player is going to have the advantage of being able to walk back and heal up. But the Spaniard needs to look at rallying all the units off the town center and actually taking the fight here, because they are just going to get locked up. They're not going to clean this up. He needs to... The Spaniard really should have tried to bait the fight there and not focus the town center at all, because that's 2,000 damage worth of health. These units don't even have 2,000 damage worth of health between them. Actually, sorry, they do. They've got about 3, but even still, he would have mopped up the fight a lot quicker if he had gone after that, rather than after town center, so to speak. And I think that might really slow him down now. In a sense, he's only just getting his H2 town center. All the advantage he had of getting that early couple of good fights sort of gone now. He hasn't got the fishing boat behind this, so to speak, and he is starting to really bottleneck on food, so getting that fishing probably would have been optimal for him. Right now, Crimson is scouting out the map, and Crimson as well is sort of transitioning pretty well. In terms of the villager counts, it's 38 to 28, so Crimson has actually pulled it ahead by about 10 villages in the meantime. So his economic play, despite being a little bit shaky earlier, is now starting to really recover. So let's not forget, the Spaniard did get 3 villages over him to begin with without actually getting any kills. So being slumped on that second town center, it's really hurting him. And now he just hasn't got anything to really take the fight here, because he hasn't got any slingers, and without the slingers he can't actually force the bowman back. Crimson is free reign on moving the bowman up just behind his Spybar. But right now, bowmen are really going to cop it, because the swan ship is going to be able to murder 3 or 4 of them at once right now, and there's a lot of low infantry as well, which are all going to get picked off fairly quick. But he needs to move this ship around a little bit. He's going to get another couple of good kills. So swan ship is going to form. The Spaniard can't yet afford another. He's transitioning to getting some druids out as well, though, just to spend that gold. He needs to be careful with them though, because if they get caught, that is basically 90 gold down the drain, which is a lot too. Oh no! No! The druid rallied in. Oh, that's not good for the Spaniard at all. But it's great for Crimson. Crimson is gonna be able to really pull ahead economically here now, because the Spaniard is basically throwing 90 resources at a time down the drain with that. 3 lots of druids, basically 300 resources. That's a big hit. Crimson is able to take the lake again. And the Spaniard is doing a bit of gathering all around the map, but without the lake, if Crimson actually gets on it heavily, this could be a GG, I think, because Crimson is really starting to get a bank. And GG, final villager count, we got 51 to 40, so that difference of +3 to the Spaniard ended up being about 10 to 11 to Crimson. And GG, guys. A bit unfortunate, a couple of the fights there for the Spaniard, but a couple of the fights there for Crimson in the early game macro, a little bit shaky as well. But both players with some valiant fighting, and after that first game with basically half an hour of an onslaught on Dueling Island, I think they sort of deserve a bit of a pat on the back for that series, because that first cheese from the Spaniard was wicked. That was amazing. But yeah, guys, that was something else. I'm just gonna let Spaniard know. So yeah, guys, in terms of the scores, so there was a bit of a time when the Spaniard had a bit of a good lead over Crimson there. He had a really good transition there with getting the longswords out before Crimson could really get a good counter bowman, but perhaps he needed to get the range out earlier as well. Instead of going for the third racks, perhaps the range, unless you can sort of force your opponent back economically a little bit more than that, the range probably would have suited him a little bit better. In the meantime, yeah, Crimson even adding in the stables, adding in the second barracks, was able to get the eventual edge over him, and did have a little bit in the bank by the end, but well played to both players. A little bit more techs actually for the Spaniard. He's actually really good with keeping track of what technologies he needs and utilizing them all. Spending a little bit, gathering and spending a little bit more gold than his opponent overall as well. But anyway, guys, good game, well played. I will see you another night, I think.